Thank you. Maravik Francis.
Hi, my name is Maravik Francis. I live on Alaminos. This is not an inconvenience, and as I keep hearing the Benz Road residents say that, I'm starting to boil even more because it is not an inconvenience. It is a safety issue for our families and our children. Okay, there's people doing illegal U-turns in front of that diverter, speeding down because they get blocked. Now they're speeding around Franwood. It's a safety, something is going to happen. And, I don't know if you're, willing to put that on your shoulders. And also the delay in response time. Someone having a coronary and they die because of the 5 minutes. Are you gonna, how are you gonna feel if that happens? I mean, we are not flexible. Things will not calm down. Please remove the diverter. The safety of our families and our children is at stake. I also have a special needs child. And being on the bus longer than he has to is horrible because of that diverter. Please take down the diverter.
Thank you. Courtney Quashen, followed by Tim Ben Boydston, followed by Steve Redenauer. Courtney?
Hi, my name is.
Come on, sweetheart. We're going to listen to you. Come on, get up.
Poor Courtney. I know that she
Go ahead,
wrote,
Mother. That's
I
all right.
wrote a letter. She wrote a letter to you guys, and it was faxed to your office. And her concern is that she used to walk to school, and since that diverter has gone up, well, the next day the car's racing around it, making U-turns. As a parent, I cannot let my daughter cross that street. On a personal note, I feel when we looked at homes 10 years ago, we looked on Benz, and there was a sign, and it said, "This road will go through." And we chose to move elsewhere. And I don't think everybody should suffer because people on Benz chose to purchase there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Courtney. Tim Ben Boydston.
Mayor Keller, members of the City Council, Tim Ben Boydston, a former City Councilman and member of the Santa Clarita Neighborhoods Coalition. And I see a lot of possible members that might want to join the coalition here. There are a lot of neighbors in the room, and it's great to live in a city where the people here feel they will be listened to by the council. And that is a testimony to the democracy in action here in Santa Clarita. I would remind the council that this is a tough decision here, that you have to look at both sides, though, and that you have to make sure not to let the rights of the majority trample the rights of the minority just for the sake of the fact that they may have more votes. Because in a democracy, it is your job to take care of the minority. And I do want you to take very careful consideration of the studies and find a solution that works for everyone, even if it is closing off all of the entrances to Copper Hill. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Ridenauer, followed by Val Thomas, followed by Nancy Van Skeever, followed by Maury Deason. Sir?
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. I live actually on the corner, or not on the corner, on Alaminos and Franwood, which has now become a three-way uncontrolled intersection. Benz and Alaminos was a four-way controlled intersection with stop signs on all four corners and markings. Now, Franwood is the only stop sign. I have two small children. There's small children on both sides of my house, of my neighbors. It is unsafe now for me to have my children in front of my home. It's an outrage that we were given 24 hours notice before. Here are the diverters. At Franwood and Alaminos, it's always wet. It's a wet area, so cars constantly do their little stops and burnouts. Coming down, especially now that we have more upset residents, passers through, etc. Now the biggest burden is the homeowners on Contesta. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Valerie Thomas.
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Valerie Thomas. I'm representing Placer Rideau Canyon Property Owners Association, and we too are members of the Neighborhood Coalition. A few weeks ago, the council voted to give the Benz Road diverter a 3-month trial. I would urge you to continue that decision. Now, we've all stood in supermarket checkout lines behind a toddler screaming for the enticing candies on display. And follow through on what you said you were going to do, or you're going to have every neighborhood in the valley here with the same thing. There are other streets like Canvas facing it. There are decisions of major proposals, all of which will affect traffic, the hospital plan, the avenues, the Lyons to Dockweiler at-grade railroad crossing. You need to deal with these traffic problems quickly and cleanly.
Thank you. Nancy Van Siever, and be followed by Maury Deason.
My name is Nancy Van Sciver. I'm a 23-year resident of the Santa Clarita Valley, and I've seen it change and I've seen it grow. And I just wish to say that with the advent of our growth, we know we have traffic, but we would like to maintain the integrity of our neighborhoods, and we would like you to take that into consideration whenever you make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Deason, you're our final speaker, sir.
My name is Morris Deason. I've lived a quarter of a mile from Benz Drive for 35 years. I'm also one of the founders of the greatest city in California, the city of Santa Clarita. That was 20-some years ago, and I think it was a good idea. But I think the diverter is a ridiculous situation. What you're doing, you're actually sending traffic from one area to pollute traffic in another area, and you're making the whole area from Alaminos Drive and our streets up in Calwood, Franwood are also being affected. What you're doing, you're bowing to a handful of complainants while trampling on the rights of the majority, and presenting emergency vehicle response time increases. Somewhere along the line, you have to say enough is enough. May I see a show of hands can I see that? Show of hands for the diverter? Nobody. Can I see a hands of people that don't want the diverter? Now, is that democracy in action or not, sir? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Deason. Ladies and gentlemen, I also have probably 25 comment cards, very similar to the remarks that have been said. There are a few cards in here that are in support of leaving the diverter, but the vast majority are requesting that the diverter be removed. Council? Go ahead, Frank.
First, I want to apologize to the council. I missed the meeting when this was decided. I missed one of 5 meetings in 11 years. I had a personal injury that I wasn't able to attend, and I watched it on TV. I know it was a contentious, very difficult decision for the council and those in attendance that night. The situation on Benz Road has reaffirmed 11-year position I've had, and that's whether to consider the validity of any type of traffic calming measure that limits or prohibits access in residential neighborhoods, and whether the city should have a general policy that significantly restricts or even bans the use of measures such as diverters, gates, and speed humps. It would seem that there are many negatives and only a few positives concerning these specific traffic calming devices. Closing public streets for a city attorney is illegal and begins a dangerous neighborhood domino effect. Many of our residential neighborhoods already have limited access with only a few connections to main roadway systems. Diverters, gates, and even speed humps typically cause motorists to take new paths that significantly increase their travel distance to schools, shopping, and work sites. Increased travel distance equates to more lost time on the road, more fuel consumption, increased pollution, and increase greenhouse gas emissions. Travel distance and travel time are not only increased for day-to-day travel, but also during critical situations such as fire, police, and an ambulance responding to an emergency, or if a neighborhood needs to evacuate due to fire, earthquake, or flood. In fact, the Los Angeles County Fire Department's current policy strongly discourages the use of speed humps. It specifically states, quote, "The fire department does not support the installation of speed humps. Speed humps delay fire department responses. Speed humps cause injury to firefighters. Speed humps cause damage to heavy fire department vehicles," end of quote. While it is true that diverters, gates, and speed humps will cause a local reduction in traffic volumes for the streets they are placed on, the impact to adjacent streets and neighborhoods is typically increased traffic volumes and a decrease in their quality of life. Our experience also indicates that the implementation of these measures can create divisiveness and animosity through neighborhoods. It seems clear that the negatives far outweigh the positives, and for these reasons, I recommend that staff develop a resolution for council to consider at a later date that diverters, gates, and speed humps are no longer used in the city of Santa Clarita as traffic calming measures.
I want to give the other council members an opportunity to comment something I meant to mention. Ladies and gentlemen, it was my request that we had this special meeting today. And I tell you openly, as evidenced by the number of people in this room, this is a significant matter for this community. And it was apparent to me that we'll see how things materialize here, but it needed to be reviewed in a more timely basis, in my opinion, than waiting the 90-day period that we had originally talked about. So once again, I want to thank you for taking the time to come out this afternoon, and my fellow council members and staff as well for making this meeting possible. With that, council, any other comments?
Laurie, do you want to go?
Any further discussion? Yeah. Laurie?
Is that better? Okay. I want to echo thanking people for coming. In addition to what the woman said about today being Rosh Hashanah, it's also fall break for the Saugus District and the Hart District, and I know there are a lot of people who would be here if it wasn't for those things. And I appreciate you all coming. I appreciate the emails that everybody sent. You're obviously very passionate about it. This, there have been a lot of criticisms about us meeting today, but whether or not you agree with us being here, we certainly needed to respond to so many people who reached out to us. There are a lot of things that come up in this. This is an issue that affects your neighborhood, the quality of life, and that came up. I don't understand. I know that there are people here from the Santa Clarita Neighborhood Coalition who, for some reason, are only interested in what happens on one little part of the neighborhood and not the whole neighborhood. And I think what we need to address is what's best for the whole neighborhood. That's a hard decision, and when you talk about democracy, I think it's one of the things that we faced the last time that we were talking about it is what's best for everyone. And sometimes what's best for everyone might not be best, what you think is best for you, and that's the hard thing. I know that both Cameron Smythe and Buck McKeon have told me that the hardest thing for them about being on the city council is that you have to sit up here and face your friends and neighbors. And God knows I got phone calls from lots of them about this, and it does not make the decision any easier. When we talked in August about what we were going to do, it was my strong feeling that the diverter was not the best idea, but there were a lot of people that wanted to see that. I feel bad for the people who live on Benz who have had to deal with increase of traffic. I think any of us who have lived in Santa Clarita for longer than 10 or 15 years have had an increase in traffic wherever we live. When the discussion here revolved around what can we do, how can we address this. I did not want a temporary diverter in any way placed there. The idea was to put it there temporarily so that we could study the numbers. The one thing that really jumps out to me, Andrew Yee from our traffic department, there is a science to traffic studies, but when you involve people, you move away from the science a little bit and there's some art involved. And so it's difficult, I think, for us to look at, well, what would happen if we this? What would happen if we that? And to me, the idea of putting the diverter in temporarily was, what will happen if we put the diverter there? Will it help? I'm not a traffic scientist. I didn't think that it would, but I felt that it was worth giving it a try. I expected that there would be an emotional response. I kind of thought it would be in 3 months, not 3 days. But you know, it's obvious that this has had that kind of a negative impact. I said this in August as well. I think traffic is like water. It will find a way to get through. People will find a way to get through. If the problem is specifically cut through traffic, which to me means people going from Bouquet to Copper Hill, or vice versa, who don't live in your neighborhood, that's one issue that's completely separate from the people who live in the neighborhood being able to use their own streets. And it's your street whether you live on it or not, because it's a public street. So I feel very strongly about that. With all due respect to Councilman Ferry, I am not against the idea of putting speed humps in. I think times have changed, Santa Clarita has changed, and we may need to look at some alternative measures to slow down some traffic. In a perfect world, I would say let's hire about 50 more sheriff's deputies and put one in every neighborhood and ticket everybody who exceeds the speed limit. With the way the finances are looking right now, I think we're really, really lucky to have the guys we have. So I think that's not a possibility. I would like to look at the possibility of having the speed humps put in, seen on a temporary basis, if that is something that works, and having us come back again and look at that and see if that slowed down the traffic in the neighborhood. The people need to get through. The people who live there need to get in and out of the neighborhood. I don't like the idea of blocking them. If we can slow them down, I'd like to try that.
Thank you, Lori. Further discussion? Green?
I think every neighborhood wants exactly the same thing. They want to keep their property values up. They want a peaceful neighborhood. They want respect in their neighborhood. They want safe neighborhoods. They want people to be respectful of the speed in their neighborhood. And I think cut-through traffic is one issue. Our traffic engineers have an extremely complicated groupings of laws and sciences that they have to deal with when they change anything in a street. I think that it is very, very difficult for many neighborhoods. Benz isn't the only street that's got problems. There's a lot of neighborhoods that have them, some that have been here already. We can't just turn our back on those problems. And while I totally agree with Councilman Ferry that potentially the diverter is not the answer, that's why I read the motion right up front. The diverter was to be a test. And the fact of the matter is, looking from the amount of people in a room, the test has already become tested. So the good news is that we have a room full of people, because that is the way our country functions, and that is the best part of our government. Everybody else wants our government, everywhere else in the world, so I'm very pleased you're here. I am concerned about the safety of Benz Road and Canterwood and Alaminos and Buckhorn and every other street out there and every other neighborhood. And the one overriding thing that comes down to it is that people have concern about speeding. And it's a very difficult thing to say, well, we're going to give tickets. We're only allowed to put in signals where we have warrants for them. We have to be very careful with stop signs because if people run the stop signs and they weren't properly put in with meeting all the state criteria, and we have other problems and loss of life potentially. So stop signs have their place and signals have their place, and I think that the turn restrictions had some impact. I don't know what the final analysis of that would be with staff. I don't have that in front of me. But I do believe that we cannot turn our back on providing a mechanism or mechanisms to make these neighborhoods safe. So I think Councilwoman Anders said it correctly. We overwhelmingly heard from the majority of the people in the neighborhood that they were not all right with the diverter, but they were willing to accept the speed humps or speed cushions, as the fire department now calls them. But I'd like to see staff be able to install and try that and do it throughout the neighborhood so that wherever there would be a problem, I don't want to take one street's traffic and push it to another street. I don't think it's fair to say, well, there's a problem here, close that, and push the problem somewhere else. The problem has to be looked holistically. It's like your body. You have to take care of the whole being. You can't just take care of one part, and we have to take care of the whole. And I understand the frustration. We have similar frustration in not being able to do within the law everything we want to do. It's very complicated. Benz had a sign on it, as the one lady stated, for years, saying this street would be open. County opened it. County has a lot of development up above that area in their jurisdiction, and we cannot close one street without impacting another street. And some of the other streets are in county jurisdiction, and we wouldn't have the right to close them at all. So I would like to see us work with the speeding issue and the safety issues and work with the neighborhood to make them comfortable with their neighborhood. Cut through traffic, well, if they have to slow down and that's where they want to go and they're driving safely and they're not impacting the neighborhood by doing unsafe things, that's one thing. But if people's driving behavior can't be controlled any other way but this way, staff needs to have that option. If we take every option away from staff, then they will not be able to do anything to help these people. So I believe that if the council wants to remove the diverter, you've got to do something else. You have to slow traffic down and make those people in all those neighborhoods feel comfortable that their neighborhood belongs to them.
Thank you. Marcia, did you have anything?
Frank wanted to say something.
Frank?
A couple of, we did a study on speed humps on Old Orchard, wasn't it, Ken? And they were our pilot program. Through that pilot program, the city council at the time created a council policy that we would not have speed humps in the city of Santa Clarita. At the time, it was the sheriff and the fire department were adamantly opposed, similar to what you heard earlier is their current policy, mainly because those big fire engines, the structure of them, let's say it costs $300 grand, $400 grand for the fire truck. One of their big arguments not only was slowing response time, but the injury to the men and women on the truck, but also to the truck itself. That was a big part of the argument. But the other thing that we found through our studies, it did nothing for speed. Everyone in a Yukon sped up because they felt no impact going over the speed hump. People that slow down and go slowly, ba-bump, ba-bump, felt the hump. Everybody else that knows I speed up 10 miles an hour, it was a, and we found that it didn't do anything. And our public safety people said, don't waste your money. And that's the third thing. If we do speed humps here on Benz, we need to look at the impact to our city coffers, because at the time, for those neighborhoods that want it, Andrew might remind me, it was significant, well over $1 million. And that was to install plus to maintain. And so we install speed humps on Benz when we're already being told by public safety, don't do it. We know that they're ineffective for people who are just going to go faster over them. I know there's going to be dozens and dozens of people said, my kids want to be safe. I mean, we're going to, once we go past this public policy, every neighborhood and every street's going to want speed humps. So I'm very cautious to open the door to the plethora of people who are going to want speed humps. Not that I don't think people would want them or they think mentally it keeps them safe. It doesn't. We did that study. We spent a bunch of money. So I want to be cautious there. Closing roads. The city has roughly 180,000 people. The valley has 225,000 people. Is that about right, Ken? We only have had a few permits, 3,500 permits, 4,000 permits over the course of the last 5 to 6 years. The valley county has almost 40,000 projected homes that are going around the city boundaries. Benz Road is just one of dozens of impacts that we have to face as a city when we're the hole in the donut with everything going around us. The donut's getting bigger with us having to parks and recs, sheriff services, road systems. So closing any public road is a significant impact to the totality of residents. When we talk about cut-through traffic, I'm with everyone on this council against cut-through traffic. What you have to understand, when we did the road restrictions, we did away with cut-through traffic when it came to Antelope Valley and Canyon Country during specific times that we're going for, trying to get to the industrial center or on the other side of town. The cut-through traffic you're talking about now, look around. It's your neighbors. And so when you're talking about the studies being 3,000, there's 1,500 of you that are taking 2 trips a day. It goes to 3,000 like that. So the cut-through traffic, we need to define what that is. People come up here and says, oh, you ran for against cut-through traffic. Yeah, we're against cut-through traffic. That's why we put the signs in to keep those 2-hour windows of when people are commuting to work to get them down to Haskell Canyon, to Copper Hill. They don't have residents. But the cut-through traffic now that we're referring to, I was at Saugus High School. We're looking at Rosedale, Saugus. You're all part of the same community, same neighborhood. And once again, Annette Lucas knows. My position now is no different than on Calgrove, right? Every road needs to be used to its capacity. It was designed for 6 lanes. It needs to be striped to 6 lanes. If it was said Benz Road was going to be extended, that was known for 30 years when they did the general plan that road had to get done. So anything we ultimately do that closes a road, prevents a road from being open, does not allow a road to be, the Cross Valley Connection is a perfect example. There was a room full of you guys back in 1992. The council voted no. The state said to go away, $110 million road. We still haven't completed it. Now it costs us $250 million.
Don't say that again. That's wrong.
That's true.
Wrong.
So we have to know that we're sensitive to what you guys are saying, but this is a significant issue in Canyon Country, Newhall, Valencia, and Saugus. And if we don't act with good public policy, then we're going to have roomfuls of Benz roads every meeting for decades to come until we say, we're sorry, this is the way it is. The county are building these homes. These roads are on your network of roads. We can't close any road down. We have to build every road designed to be road. We have to use everything. No diverters, and we'll do what we can with signs. We'll do what we can with stop signs. We'll do what we can with traffic circles. But it's just not fair to other communities when we try to react to one neighborhood and disregard others. And so that's, I guess, what's hard because you guys weren't in, I don't want to be applauded because I feel terrible for Benz, because the reality is the Benz residents did come every meeting for years until it affected everyone in this room. And Andrew, we talked about the city staff. City staff told us to do nothing for 3-4 years. So you guys talk about your studies and your surveys. They came back to us every time. We were trying to do what we thought was best for the neighborhood. It didn't work, but it's not going to work every time we try to react to what's best for neighborhoods. So you have to know, whatever side you're on here, this issue with the growth of our valley is a significant one that is not going to go away.
Mayor.
Thank you, Frank.
Mayor.
Marcia, did you want to go and then we'll have Lorene?
Lorene, go ahead. No, I want to be last.
I just
Thanks.
wanted to point out a couple things. The fire department had a different design that we saw called speed cushions, and they were designed to allow the fire trucks to flow through. They matched their wheels, so the fire department was not impacted by the humps, but it does directly affect cars. So I did want to note that it was a completely different design of what they had a few years ago. And Old Orchard 1 and 2 came. They wanted speed humps. They have been happy with them. They have never been back. So just, they did pay for half of it. So I just wanted to make that.
Thank you. Marcia?
Okay. We have a whole room full of people here to talk to us, in that we're happy to have you here because we want to listen to you. But I wish all of you people would have traveled down to the county and let them know that when they were building around, that your neighborhoods were going to be affected. So they never had the benefit of your sometimes angry emails and accusing us of being all kinds of things. You know, we're just like you. We're your neighbors. We live in neighborhoods just like you do. And that is something that I'm hoping that you will understand. You elect us. The difference is you elect us and we have to make policy. Sometimes, obviously, we make some policy that is not very popular. But I want to ask a couple of questions. Robert, could you come up, please? Okay, I'm wondering if you can please tell me again why traffic calming measures like those used in Bridgeport can't work so that we don't have to put these speed cushions in, because I can guarantee you speed cushions are going to make no difference. If we put them in one street, people are going to go down another street. If we put them everywhere, we're asking everyone to pay for your speed humps. The county's not going to pay for it. The taxpayers are going to have to pay for it.
Largely, is it on? Largely from the comments that we've heard, we're going after volumes. In Bridgeport, which you see, we, the city, design those or require the developer to build those into the project. Those would work great if we were designing this community new. We have a very difficult situation trying to fit those into an older neighborhood. The right-of-way, the widths, the ability to add those things is very difficult and very costly. We would have to take people's property in order to do some of the circles you see in Bridgeport. You would have to change significant drainage patterns to do some of the diverters. It's difficult to do, some of which we could, and that was on the list of the 14 that I had mentioned. But unfortunately, the older neighborhoods just don't accommodate those things that you see in Bridgeport, which is largely what we're trying to do in the newer developments as you see them coming forward.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's just very difficult to try and preserve the sanctity of neighborhoods. That is my belief, that what we have to do is try not to have development happening outside of our area adversely impact our existing neighborhoods. And I don't believe that we have to just allow roads to remain open to make people's lives miserable. But it is true that, you know, that road was going to be opened, and that's kind of why I didn't buy a house there many, many years ago.
Yeah, I think just the one thing is very important to point out, you know, the very same development we point at and say has an impact, we spent a lot of staff time looking at those. The one thing that will solve this problem in the future will be the extension of Bouquet Canyon to its ultimate alignment. It will take a lot of this traffic off. That option is so expensive right now. Without development, it just doesn't happen. So in the future, this problem will resolve itself and it'll be just neighborhood traffic. There'll still be issues of speed like we've got everywhere. That'll be something we'll have to address through enforcement.
Okay, so suppose then you go ahead and you take the diverter down. You don't have the options that are listed in this agenda item is to take the diverter down, don't have any turn restrictions. Is that, or was it to put the turn restrictions back? Excuse me, Robert.
That direction and recommendation from staff was up to the council. You know, if you so chose to remove the diverter, we believe the volumes on Benz, which demonstrate based on the numbers, came down from 3,300 down to 16. Is that acceptable to the Benz residents? They would say no. Is it common to what we have on some residential streets in the city? It is very common.
That's with the turn restrictions?
With the turn restrictions, yes. Yeah, and I apologize because that does offend the people on Benz. I recognize that.
You know, to me, if the majority of the council votes to take down the diverter tonight, I don't see how we can, in good conscience, end this meeting without trying to come up with a solution. I just don't see how we can do that. And speed humps and speed cushions, everybody thinks that's going to be the panacea, but it's not. I can almost guarantee you it's not. And here the city's willing to spend, what, $150,000 to put them all over the neighborhood as an experiment?
Yeah, and just one more clarification. Out of the old Orchard studies, we did have a speed reduction of 6 miles an hour on average from the original study.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've already had the public participation, please. Marcia, any more?
No. Is there going to be more discussion or what?
We haven't quit yet. Lori?
Mayor, I have the agenda item from our August meeting with the recommendation from staff, which is not listed as one of today's recommendations, but it's the step-by-step installation of speed humps and the time limit, 3 months after, remove the peak turn hours, and different points of data collection. We ignored it last time. Perhaps we want to go back to this. And Marcia, you may very well be right. The speed humps may not work, but I think it's worth a try. And I agree with you. I don't think we can leave here doing nothing.
Well, the problem is that this diverter was to be temporary for 90 days. Now, I understand people like their routines, and they have no patience for change, which is obvious from the tone. And some of the emails I received were very thoughtful and came up with some solutions. Others were rude and disrespectful. And I'm sorry if people don't like that word, but they were. And what we're trying to do is to come up with a solution. We don't take our positions or our jobs lightly, and we need to do what we think is right. And I cannot in good conscience spend money for, especially with the cushions, which might be fine for the fire department, but they're going to make no difference. I cannot vote for that. So if I don't vote to remove the diverter, it's because of the speed humps, not because I think that it was a great idea or whatever, but we have not allowed it to work. We don't know what would happen in another month. We have angry people, obviously. We don't know, and I think it's too soon to take it down without the data, because we could very well use that as a solution for somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah, I could hiss you back too.
Might be helpful. Ask Ken to do it.
I don't know that I want to follow that. Just a quick comment. You know, one thing, folks, can I say? Again, I called the meeting, and I made comment to a couple of people on the phone when citizens called me. You know, you don't have to hit me in the head with a frying pan to know that we need to address this thing earlier rather than later. Can I tell you something, though? Be thankful of something. I know, please, I like to always think there's some positive out there. Could you imagine if you're in the county trying to work on this issue? That you'd be down in the heart of L.A. on a Tuesday morning, lined up forever? I'll tell you one thing, you've got a city council here that is, along with city staff, that has worked awful hard. Genuinely, guys, we've trying to find the right answer for you folks. And I just echo, as we have all said, we appreciate your input, but I wish this was an easy one. It is a tough one. It genuinely is, and we do care about the quality of your neighborhoods. And always having, of course, keep in line with the law and with the safety issues and hopefully come up with responsible solutions. Frank?
I move that the traffic diverters are removed from Benz Road, that the turning restrictions are placed back prior to the diverters, and staff come back with citywide policy in regards to diverters, speed humps, and gates that the council can make a decision on with all options. I was not aware of what Councilmember West said. I'll make my motion and then so on.
Oh, just comment.
I'll second that for discussion.
Well, a second for discussion. That's a good thing. I think maybe it would be good to have two separate motions. One would be the motion on staff policy coming back with something. I think Councilman McLean, I think Councilwoman Ender, myself, we all know we can't walk out of this room without a solution. I mean, I think it's clear that we're very concerned about the whole neighborhood and all the neighborhoods. But maybe we should just have a vote on the diverter and the turn restrictions, and then the second vote would be on a policy for staff to come back with. And they went upstairs to make a copy of all of the staff information that council
My only concern is, and why I included two, because honestly, I wasn't aware, Councilmember West, regarding the new speed hump. So I wasn't here that evening.
It is a new design, Councilman Ferry.
The only issue I have is the price for those speed humps were going to be, was it 150,000? I just know, I know as sure as I could ever be that if we spend 150,000 in this neighborhood, every PTA mom throughout this valley is going to want speed humps. And unless we're ready to say no to downtown Renew Hall redevelopment or the library or the aquatic the expansion, the money's going to come somewhere. Because whatever we do here has to be equitable, and that's always been our policy. It has to be equitable. So if I'm going to look to these people and say they get 150,000 in city coffers, then I better be able to look at the next 20 numbers that's now $3 million, which means something doesn't get done. So if they're going to bring back speed humps, then I want to know the fiscal impact, because it's going to go neighborhood through neighborhood, and I want to know, are the neighborhoods going to pay for it? Are we going to pay for it? Are we going to share costs? Who's going to maintain them? Who's going to take liability? But to say tonight, speed humps, you know, public policy, I mean, everybody's going to come wanting speed humps. And so that's why I'm asking for it to come back, because we don't have the information here today.
Lori? Oh, sorry, Lori. I want one of those marshmallow guns so I can shoot you, so I can get you to stop talking.
Everyone's tried, it's never worked, so.
Robert, and correct me, please, if I'm wrong. It's my understanding that the purchase of these alleged speed hump cushion things at approximately $150,000, we would then own them, and they would be usable at another time.
Yeah, as we proposed at the August meeting, we looked at a temporary installation, which is a installed device. It's about a 4 or 5 month lead time to buy them, but the $6,000 per location came up to about 150 grand if we estimated how many we would have to put out there based on the community. And we've looked at the question Frank raises. We think that's in the order of $6 to $8 million citywide.
Well, and the thinking being, though, if we had these temporary ones, we don't know that this is the solution. So temporarily, we could look at it. If this turns out to be, the panacea, cure-all, greatest thing, then we come back and look about how this would be financed. But then if another neighborhood came up, we could have these temporary ones to, again, see if that addressed the situation there. So, I mean, to me, it's something that we could use, I assume, for special events, or if we needed them for other things. I'm not sure where we'll keep them, Robert's house. But, I mean, to me, it's an investment that we could use again.
But then once you go ahead and you buy these and you put them in this neighborhood, and then you go back and tell them our policy is that now you have to pay for it, we're going to have probably twice as many people in the room saying it's not their fault. Why should they pay for it?
Well, Mayor.
Lorraine?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that all of the solutions that we were given were to do a test and find out the response. And the clear thing is there is a little difference between the Benz neighborhood issue and some of the other neighborhoods that may come. Some neighborhoods have HOAs. Some have been designed with these things in them already. But Benz was opened up by the county. And the Benz folks and that neighborhood have a little different situation than some of the people that may come later. So I don't believe that you're setting policy by helping correct a problem in a neighborhood. If the speed hump, the cushions that the fire department said are designed to accommodate them, if that worked, then certainly the neighborhood would want them. If it doesn't work, it's an enormously good test, because you're not going to have people coming in asking for something that doesn't work. But we can't do nothing. And for this particular area, these people have had a lot of trauma in dealing with the changes up there. And they're in all the streets, they're all concerned about their children. So we all now have in front of us what the staff's original timeline and recommendation was. This would be a test, and it'd be something the city would own. I can't compare this neighborhood and maybe another neighborhood that's been impacted by a decision government's made from a neighborhood that would just come in and say, well, you didn't make any changes or nobody made any changes, but we just have speed now, we want to deal with it. That's an entirely different issue, and there could be a step-by-step process for neighborhoods to go through. If this is something that they wanted to deal with, staff could come back with a schedule of, you know, how that can be paid for, how it can be done if we had a plethora of neighborhoods wanting to have this. That may not happen at all. They may all say, we hate it, but, you know, until you try it, you can't be sure.
I'll remind the council we have a motion and a second.
I guess my only comment is I understand we have this recommendation, but this recommendation came after 3 other recommendations by staff that we did not follow. The one being, keep the term restrictions, do nothing. That's why we sent them back for this. I mean, so to put this in front of me now and say, this is what staff said, this is only because we told them 3 separate times, fix it, fix it, fix it. They told us this was exactly what was going to happen. They told us if we keep doing this, this is going to happen over and over and over again. So to show that this is the solution, this was only a solution because we ignored them 3 previous times. I want to be fair. So when we say this was the solution, it wasn't. We ignore staff's recommendation. They said they went to the community. The community said do nothing by like a 70-30% margin. Keep the term restrictions, do nothing. We try to appease 29 homeowners, and now we have this. And they told us if we try to do something, expect this in every neighborhood over and over again. And I appreciate that there might be new speed cushions, but until I have a fire chief there saying that their current public policy is no longer their policy, which I read, we shouldn't go against the fire department or police department. Because when I watched that day, they might have told you about speed cushions, but I asked today for staff to give me the current LA County Fire Department's policy. And I'm just giving you the current LA County Fire policy. I don't know if that's LA County or somewhere else, but the current LA County Fire Department does not support speed humps. So if there's someone in the fire department or chief saying it's different, it's not different. And unless someone up here can tell me we have $8 million, we don't have $8 million. So it's very clear to me, public policy, what we have to do.
Actually, what the fire department did say when they were there was, yes, they can get through those speed cushions better than they can going over. It still is going to cut down their response time. So if response time and safety is your concern, these speed cushions are still not the answer. That's my problem, is trying to look out for the safety of the entire neighborhood. And speed cushions are not the safest thing to do.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Are we ready to make a vote?
Can we rehear the motion?
The motion was made by Councilmember Ferry and seconded by Councilmember McLean to remove the diverter, to place back the turn restrictions, with staff to come back for a policy on speed humps, speed cushions, and gates.
Citywide policy, not for Benz.
Right, citywide policy. Okay, thank you.
There's your motion. Roll call.
Councilmember Ender?
No.
Councilmember West?
No.
Councilmember Ferry?
Yes.
Councilmember McLean?
Yes.
Mayor Keller?
No.
Motion does not carry.
I'd like to move that we ask staff to remove the diverter from Alaminos and Benz as soon as possible.
That's a motion.
That's a motion.
Do you want to do a separate
You're going to put the
motion?
returns restrictions back?
And I'm leaving that all by itself. Remove the diverter. Whatever comes next, comes next. I want
100% of the people that want the restrictions. So
Then that's your motion next. This is my motion now.
We'll do another motion. I'll second your motion.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? City Clerk?
Councilmember West?
Aye.
Councilmember Ferry?
Yes.
Councilmember McLean?
Yes.
Councilmember Ender?
Yes.
Mayor Keller?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'm sorry, Frank, will you say that again?
I move that we replace the turn restrictions that were in place prior to the diverters.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further
I'm sorry,
discussion.
who seconded the motion?
Marcia,
Thank you.
further discussion regarding the turn restrictions.
I think we should also deal with the staff recommendation about dealing with speeding throughout the neighborhood and the speed cushions. You want to do it? You want to
Do that on a separate motion?
do it on a separate motion then?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilmember Ferry?
Yes.
Councilmember McLean?
Yes.
Councilmember Ender?
No.
Councilmember West?
No.
Mayor Keller?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Can we now deal with ladies and gentlemen?
Speed cushions.
Ladies and gentlemen, the decisions that come out of today are not going to just affect Benz Road and Alaminos and the streets up there. They're going to come and affect a great deal of the community. Councilman Ferry's right. When you do one thing in one neighborhood, it affects another. One of the only issues that changes is how things are paid for. But the neighborhoods that have problems, this neighborhood, there's a couple other specific neighborhoods, those neighborhoods have serious concerns with safety and speeding. It always comes back to the same. And the only thing that has been overwhelmingly supported in the different neighborhoods has been slowing people down. There's very limited ways of doing that, as the engineers have brought forth, because in older neighborhoods we don't have room and you're changing property. So I would like to move that we go ahead with the recommendation that staff had on installing the speed cushions up in that particular area and try it for I believe 6 months. If you'd like to read in.
Do you want me to read the
let's,
motion?
let's read it.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Bob?
read
Okay. The motion was a 4-step plan, or I'm sorry, the recommendation was a 4-step plan. Step 1, install temporary speed cushions at the 20 indicated locations on the attached figure, which we have. Leave existing peak hour turn restrictions in place at the following intersections: Benz Road and Bouquet Canyon, Sioux Drive and Bouquet Canyon, Benz Road and Copper Hill, Buckhorn and Copper Hill. And C, collect speed and volume data along all streets with speed cushions. Step 2, 3 months after installation of speed cushions, remove existing peak hour turn restrictions. B, collect speed and volume data along all streets with speed cushions. Step 3, 6 months after installation of speed cushions, collect input from the neighborhood regarding speed cushions and peak hour turn restrictions. Step 4, develop a final plan, which may include removal of speed cushions, installation of permanent asphalt speed humps/speed cushions, and/or reestablishment of peak hour turn restrictions. The final plan will be based on the willingness of the residents to pay for the permanent speed humps/speed cushions.
Okay, is that your motion? And is that a second?
Second.
I do have discussion. I have a discussion on this one, real quick. Is there anyone from the fire department here? County? I know I asked someone from the county to be present.
If it's a fireman, do we care?
Well, I do if it's not an LA County person serving the city of Santa Clarita. I mean, unless
I think we should, it needs to be our fire chief, Frank.
Okay, I know, I agree. It needs to be our fire chief.
Where is it? Right.
The police chief, is he here? I mean, is there a position the police chief has? I honestly, guys, this is such a Band-Aid. And you tell me that we're going to be able to take away speed humps, and then we're going to still have, I really need to know from the council or from the manager, we say we're trusting staff. Staff came up and said, based on this recommendation, plan on spending $6 to $8 million. We can't even get $6 million to build the bridge for the Cross Valley Connector. And you want to put in speed cushion humps. No one on this council is going to do away with speed cushion humps once we put them in. Nobody. And then every neighborhood's going to want them. So I need to know from the city manager, where you plan on getting $6 to $8 million? Because I know I'm on the budget committee and there isn't money.
We don't have $6 to $8 million. Our recommendation is to not do speed humps. If we if the council chooses to do speed humps, our recommendation is to form assessment districts and have the people in those neighborhoods pay for them.
I want to make sure people hear that because that's the reality. I mean, you guys got to know, people are going to pay for these. We don't have the money.
One way or another, the taxpayers are going to pay for it.
No. Those homeowners in those neighborhoods who choose are going to have, similar to an HOA or land LMD, not a general tax that you have for like a school bond or something general valley-wide. So I want to make sure it's clear, if we pass this, the direction we're going is those specific neighborhoods, meaning you guys, are going to be paying and assessed, not people that live on the other side of the valley or where I live. So I just want to make sure you heard from our city manager, no speed humps is not his recommendation, and we do not have the money. So as long as we're open and honest, who's paying and what the staff's recommendation is, I'm okay.
Lorraine? Appreciate it if you'd hold it down back there,
I just
folks.
had,
Lorraine?
I just wanted to read, in the staff recommendation, there was also an attached letter. It says, in the attached letter from the fire department dated August 14th, 2008, they acknowledge the city's need to address the concerns of the public and develop a course of action in matters of public policy. Furthermore, the fire department states that out of the three options, speed bumps, humps, and cushions, cushions are the least destructive of the three options. So the fire department did look at
But
it.
is one of the three options no speed humps? Okay, then they would have chosen that one. You can't say, give me ice cream, give me donuts, but they really want enchilada.
I brought that up at the
You know,
last
I
meeting. That's right.
I think the one thing that's going to happen is if the staff's hands are tied from doing anything in any neighborhood that will slow speed down, then this goes on
No, our
forever.
hands are not tied. We get the sheriffs out there and we tell them and hold them accountable where we have a problem.
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on it?
And the motion is what you read, is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Roll call.
Councilmember McLean,
No.
Councilmember Ender,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Councilmember Ferry,
No.
Mayor Keller.
I love this job. Yes.
Motion carries.
Trying it. Thank you, Mayor.
Anything else?
Just remember,
Ms.
you
Mayor?
guys get to pay for it. We don't.
I think it would,
That closes that item, ladies and
voted
gentlemen.
no.
I've got, moving over to public participation, I have one speaker. Val Thomas, you still want to speak? Val, 1 minute. 1 minute.
Yes, no problem. When I was here last week, I asked a question about the a Newhall Redevelopment Committee meeting, and the minutes are inaccurate in a couple of cases. What will be done to address that, and what will be done to address keeping them correct in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, comment on public participation?
No, sir.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attendance. We stand adjourned.